How y'all doing? This is Nathaniel Swopes and Soapset, and today I want to talk about Ken Griffey Jr. and his first inaugural Swingman's Classic. So the first inaugural Swingman's Classic is pretty much an all-star game for baseball players from historically black colleges, and this is an amazing event. One of his first kind. The event was hosted, I believe, July 7th. It was hosted at T-Mobile Park in Seattle. As we know, Ken Griffey Jr. played for the Seattle Mariners for about 10 years. He played in the MLB for 22 years. He's a Hall of Fame baseball player, one of the greatest of all time. His father also played in the MLB, and similar to like LeBron James, Ken Griffey Jr. just been a positive role model to the baseball community and the American community, and also the African American community. He just been, he's never been in trouble. We never heard anything bad about him. He's had many endorsements. His shoes, his gym shoes that came out, a lot of African American, black and brown children wear them all the time. His shoes are famous in the black community. And but this event that he's hosting is an amazing event. And we've seen similar events with the All-Star HBCU basketball game that was hosted in New Orleans. That was one of his first kind as well. I actually had an athlete that I helped out, uh, Jaquan Lawrence, who played in that HBCU basketball All-Star game that was hosted in New Orleans. So a backstory on Jaquan. Jaquan was about a 6'8", 6'9" kid that played at Perspectives, then transferred to Bogan. I went into a gym. I believe the gym was off of 47th and State Street, and he was just shooting on the side, and he didn't have um, any scholarships. I talked to him about college, and I ended up sending him to play at Lemoyne-on, a Division II HBCU, to play for my uncle, William Anderson, who's now the athletic director of Lemoyne-on, and he ended up playing it. Then that's kind of how my business started as Swope's athletic recruiter, and it was amazing for him to get invited to the first HBCU All-Star basketball game. And so back to the story, this is just amazing event for all HBCU students. And we've seen with Deion Sanders when he was the football coach at Jackson State, he had a pro day. He had a pro day at Jackson State where the USFL and the XFL came out to see a lot of players play, and he was able to have a pro day where a lot of NFL coaches was able to see a lot of HBCU players play. And not only did he invite or did he have his best players from Jackson State, but he had a lot of players from other top players from other HBCUs. So in a sense, Deion Sanders had a kind of an all-star event, all-star HBCU event at Jackson State. So what's the things that's been going on with HBCUs in recent, where a lot of professional athletes have been putting back investment into historically black colleges, is an amazing thing. With Ken Griffey's Swingman Classic, the MLB and the Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Youth Foundation has supported Ken Griffey Jr. And a lot of times when you're trying to host events for smaller schools or players that come from smaller universities, it's hard to get sponsorship, and it's hard to get sponsorship from major corporations like the NCAA or NFL or the NBA. And that's why it's so amazing when Hall of Famers or professional players give back and support, because it makes it easier for the NFL, the NBA, and the MLB to sponsor and support. So the MLB and the MLBU Foundation helped sponsor this event. Again, it was hosted at T-Mobile Park. It was also on TV. We saw the HBCU basketball All-Star game hosted on TV. We saw the Pro Day at Jackson State was on Deion Sanders' TV show that was hosted on Amazon Prime. So that was an amazing show. Got to see a lot of players talk about their life stories and meet a lot of players, not just from Jackson State, but from other HBCUs. And I just hope that a lot of other professional athletes keep investing in historically black colleges. And we recently seen judgment come down from the Supreme Court where they took away affirmative action. And affirmative action was where a lot of big PWIs are predominantly white institutions. A lot of the top institutions like a Harvard or a Michigan State or a Michigan or Illinois, North Carolina, Duke, they had to take a certain amount of minorities, and most of the minorities that they took, of course, at the time when affirmative action was put in place, the biggest minority group was African Americans in America. So affirmative action, they had to take a number of African Americans because we had a lot of African Americans wanted to go to those universities, and affirmative action was complaining about other minorities. Now I don't know like if Caucasians or Mexicans complain, but what I did see on social media, there were a lot of Asians complaining that they weren't considered to go to Harvard because of their test scores, because in a sense, they consider Asian almost as like Caucasians and not really a minority. So they consider black students over Asian students, and Asian students wanted it to be more fair based off test scores and based off resume instead of skin color. And what me mentioning affirmative action is we can see a lot more investment back into HBCUs because a lot of top African American students, not just athletes, will be going back to HBCUs, possibly, but because of affirmative action. So that could be the case. We're not sure because a lot of HBCUs are on the East Coast and the South, and we only have a few HBCUs in the Midwest. So that would be interesting to find out for students who go to Michigan and Michigan State. If they're not accepted, will they choose a Central State University, a Kentucky State University, a Wilberforce? Will they choose those Midwest or Mid-South HBCUs over other schools, or will they just look for other schools to go to? And if we get those top students, there will be more investment into HBCUs, both academically. And with Deion Sanders, we saw All-American commit to Jackson State, and we're seeing more and more players decommit from big-time schools if they're not getting that much playing time and committing to HBCUs. And we even saw Howard University picked up a really good basketball player. He was about, I believe, 7'1". I believe he was a 4-star athlete. So we now seeing more and more coaches coming back to coach HBCUs. Is an NBA player coaching at Jackson State right now. We saw Deion, even though he left to go to Colorado. Ed Reed was at Bethune-Cookman for a little bit. So we're seeing this more and more. Hopefully now, even on the baseball side, we could see more former MLB players coming back to coach MLB teams. So again, what Ken Griffey doing is an amazing job, and I just love to see it. So congratulations to Ken Griffey Jr. Thank you for all you're doing for the HBCU baseball players. Because again, in professional baseball, I think professional baseball is only about 18% black. And there was a time in the 1930s, 1940s, 1920s where a lot of African Americans preferred baseball over basketball. And they preferred it so much that when the whites didn't allow them to play in the MLB, we had the Negro League. So so many blacks played baseball that they had their own league. They had the Negro Leagues. So now it's down to about 18%. And we have most of the black players that are of African descent. We see a lot of Afro-Hispanics now in MLB, and a lot of guys from South America and Central America. But we definitely can see it on the rise with more MLB players, especially black MLB players, giving back. So again, thank you to Ken Griffey Jr. for all you're doing. If you haven't seen it, please check out the Swingman's Classic on social media. Again, it was played on July 7th, and just see how amazing the event it was. And they got to honor a lot of historically top black baseball players. So again, this is Nathaniel Swopes of Swope Setter signing out, and you all have a good one.